You know, I'm always making these videos where I'm talking about the cards that I'm buying, and today we're going to be talking about the cards that I'm selling. I've got a big stack of cards here, various formats. We've got EDH stuff, we've got brand new standard stuff, we have Eternal stuff from modern Pioneer related stuff. I think you're going to enjoy it. The video starts right now.
Special thanks to our Patreon supporters who power our channel. Check out our Patreon for monthly giveaways, exclusive content, and even a starring role in our fan fight series. Link in the description below.
Hello, welcome to the day. Thank you for spending your time with us. I'm Jake. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel, our magic. Today, we've got a stack of cards, a big stack of cards that we're going to be selling. We've got a lot of stuff that we just don't need. When you buy a bunch of Magic the Gathering cards, eventually you need to say, all right, it's time to sell some of this stuff back. We've got a lot of stuff from different formats. I'm going to talk through it. We're going to try to be as brief as possible, but I want you to understand these things that I'm selling. So if you're selling some stuff yourself, maybe it's going to be informative. If you like these finance videos where I break down what cards are good and what cards are bad and what's worth holding on to, what's worth getting rid of, click like, click subscribe. It's the best way to support the channel with just the click of a button. If you're so compelled, check us out on Patreon. Any level gets you into the Discord. It might be a good fit for you. So, when we're talking about stuff that we're selling, what we really need to do is there's a couple things, and I want to talk about a couple tips. And what they really have to do with is being organized, making sure that you know what cards you have and how many of that card you have and where they are so that you can sell them at a moment's notice. A lot of the cards we're getting rid of today, some of them are Eternal, some of them we missed the window on when we could have sold them and got more for them. A lot of people don't like to acknowledge the secondary market of this game, but when you're spending $230 on a collector booster box, it's kind of silly not to acknowledge that amount of money and at least figure out a way to get the most out of your investment. So the first thing I want to start off with are just these promos, and these are some of the lesser desirable promos. Two of them are from Ikoria here, and you can see one brand new from Zendikar Rising. So the thing about these cards is they're just all a little bit lackluster. Now, I totally missed the window to get the most out of cards like these when Ikoria was first spoiled. We're in an important moment right now in Zendikar Rising where you have all of these important cards coming out that are impactful to Zendikar, and you've just had a big Uro ban. So Zendikar is kind of in this weird, flux of discovering itself, and that's a really, really good time to get rid of cards. Nighthawk Scavenger, for example. So I have these up here as, examples. These, if one of these were to really take off in a given format, sure, holding on to them could be a good thing. But when the card really doesn't take off, there's not much that you can do other than just either keep it, or sell it at a loss or trade it away. For me, I'm just going to sell these for, a fraction of the price that I could have sold them for when the set very first came out. I've been doing this a long time, and especially when you're making videos so much, sometimes it's hard to just set the time aside and get these cards ready to go out. Yasharn, for example, just came out. It's got a little bit of commander potential. I think the card could be really good and constructed. Right now it's, $3 or $4 for the promo. So it's just kind of I'm not really going to use the card, so why not just get rid of it? So let's go ahead and talk about some brand new standard cards that just came out of Zendikar Rising. Nighthawk Scavenger, excellent card. It's like they created Vampire Nighthawk and then turned it into a Tarmogoyf. It's just a really good card, and right now you could get $5 or $6 for this non-foil. If this card never really takes off in standard, knowing how big and massive a set Zendikar Rising is, and just how few people are actually playing paper, right now is a great time to be able to unload a regular set rare for the price of a pack and a half. If you saw the Zendikar Rising collector booster, I'll go ahead and put it in the cards. If you haven't, you can check it out. You can see I opened some really fun stuff in there, like cards like these. Showcase Omnath, Luminarch Aspirant. This is actually not supposed to be here. We'll talk about that right after this. We've opened a foil extended Leyline Tyrant. This is a $45 card right now. So when you're buying $25 booster packs, you have to think, if I'm keeping this Misty Rainforest in the collector booster box, I open a foil Misty Rainforest, you have to think, what can I sell back? And it's cards like these. If you're on a budget, if you're trying to build a collection on a budget, but you want to have cool pimp cards like Expedition Misty Rainforest, go ahead and crack open a booster box. But then, after you're done opening the collector booster box, look for cards like these. I would like to keep Leyline Tyrant, but this is a card in EDH. I like enchantments. creatures in EDH are so easy to kill. They get answered all the time. So while this card may be really good in standard, it might take off, maybe it goes up a little bit, I would rather lock in selling it for like $45 and then know that later on, you know, if the card tanks, I can acquire it again. But most likely it's not a card that I'm really going to want to keep. A lot of people are excited about the card. I'm sure it's going to get played in some constructed decks. I'm sure it's going to get played in standard to great effect. But I don't think the card's going to be a huge impact in something like Modern or Pioneer. So it's best to just get some money back on the collector booster box investment. Omnath Showcase. It's the exact same thing. Uro just got banned, but this card is so powerful, it's still doing great in standard. If this card eats a standard ban, this is going to go from a $25 card, which it's currently at, and it's going to tank. It'll probably get played in EDH. It may get played in some other constructed formats like Pioneer or Modern, but if it doesn't take off in standard, this is just $25 that will be lost. Like if this goes down to $10, I can acquire it later. It's a pretty mana restrictive general if you're playing it in Commander. And in Standard, yes, people are getting to it. With Lotus Cobra, the card is extremely, extremely oppressive. Even after Uro, it's still doing great things. But again, I opened one. Mostly I play EDH anyway. If I'm not playing like something silly like Mill in Standard or Historic or Modern or Witch's Oven or those kind of memes, I'm very, very rarely going to go after like whatever is the most popular deck in a format. So for me, I would rather just sell this. Same thing with a card like this. I think this is good, but it's probably not going to do a lot. And so for me, I would rather just sell it now. Scoot Swarm. This is one of those cards that everybody thought it was going to get banned, and then it didn't get banned, and now I'm sitting on 3 of these showcase copies. What if it does get banned? If I'm not playing it, why not get rid of it? All right, so now we've got some stuff for just various different constructed formats. First up is Terror of the Peaks. It's like an $18 or $20 foil. I'm not playing it. I'm just going to get rid of it. We have some other stuff in recent memory. Cavalier of Thorns. Everybody knows how good this card has been, but again, it's a card I'm not really using. It's an unplayed promo, and I'm just going to go ahead and sell it. Cavalier of Night, same thing. Rotting Regisaur. This is one of those cards that is still in recent memory. People are playing it in Eternal formats. I know that its ability is actually upside in certain decks, but this is a foil playset of this card. So it's going to fetch about anywhere from like $20 to $25 for the playset. I'm not really playing it. And in the formats that I really do like playing, like Modern and Pioneer and Historic, Historic doesn't even exist in Paper, and so I just really don't need this card. Or if Paper really does come back, maybe I go, whoops, I sold those Rotting Regisaurs. I can't believe they broke out in like a big Modern deck, but as of right now, I just don't see it. Mystical Dispute foil. This is another card, recent memory, same thing, recent memory staple, foil, worth just a few bucks. But again, it's like not something that I'm going to want to play in EDH. I just don't really play green very much, so might as well get rid of it. Cavalier Flame foil. Another one of those cards that holds like an $8 foil price point that I'm not playing. Do you think these are good? Do you think they're really good in EDH? Let me know in the comments. I just don't really see it very much. That's kind of like my philosophy is like, I think about the card from EDH standpoint. You can see a lot of the cards I'm selling, most of these have been creatures so far. So a lot of the stuff that I get rid of, I mean, this is an enchantment. It's only a couple bucks, but it's not one of those cards that really took off the way that I thought it would. So it's holding at like $1 or $2. At this point, it's just good eBay feedback. Then we've got a couple Embercleaves. One is the extended art and one is the foil. I actually bought these from like pre-COVID, and I could have sold them when they were really spiking, when like Paper was really going ham. I think I bought this for like 10, and I bought the foil at maybe like 10 as well. And it was right before they broke out in that big tournament, and everybody saw just how powerful Embercleave was. Now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of them, even though it's pretty much going to be breaking even at this point. I'm just happy to be able to sell these cards back. I thought they'd make it into a deck, but Paper's in a weird way right now. All right, so all of these right here, these are all foil Witch's Ovens. And I think these are 8 in each of these. All right, so yeah, those are 8 foil Near Mint Witch's Ovens. So right here, these are 6 foil playsets of Witch's Ovens that I bought at like 35 cents a piece, each of these. And now it's like a $3 or $4 card. So I'm just going to unload each of these playsets at anywhere from like 10 to 15. Just get rid of these. Witch's Oven was one of those cards that I saw and I was like, you know what? This is actually a really good card. I think that people are going to use this to great success. I think we all know how oppressive Witch's Oven is. And so when you do something like this and you spec a cheap foil of a card that you think is going to be impactful, just make sure to lock in those gains. If you don't lock in those gains, you can't grow your collection. Your goal should be, at some point, you get your collection to a point where it's self-sustaining, where you can sell stuff out of it and buy stuff out of it without having to go into your own income or into your bank account. Like if I can buy a bunch of Witch's Ovens at 35 cents a piece and then flip them for $3 or $4 a card, that's a really, really good turnaround on my investment. Underworld Breach, combo piece that I'm not playing. Playset of Dig Through Time. It's just Pioneer spec that a lot of people aren't playing Pioneer. It's a format that people are really interested in, but until we get back and until it gets big tournament support, as long as we're sitting on MTG Arena, I would rather it just be cash. These are all playsets of Oath of Nissas. Okay, so this card, there's a story behind all of these. I bought all of these in response to War of the Spark, okay? So I buy all of them before War of the Spark. I'm buying all of these at anywhere from 29 to 79 cents a piece. Just tons of them. Wherever I can see them, I'm buying them up. War of the Spark comes out, and Oath of Nissa doesn't really take off. It's not as impactful in Modern as I expect it to be. I just expect with all of these Planeswalkers that are coming out in War of the Spark, that all of these oaths, Oath of Johnny, Oath of Gideon, all of these oaths that are going to allow you to do cool stuff with Planeswalkers early, seeing as Modern, Pioneer, or we didn't know about Pioneer at the time, but Modern is a format that values low-cost spells. So when War of the Spark was spoiled and it was going to be like, oops, all Planeswalkers, I was like, well, clearly Oath of Nissa is going to be really impactful. Well, the card did make an impact in Modern, but not an extremely big impact. Well, when Pioneer came out, this card warped Pioneer. And then what happened was it got banned right out the gate. When it was originally legal in Pioneer, I missed the window to sell. Then, after time and Pioneer has had a little bit of growing room, they decide to unban it. Well, the card spikes and I didn't know where these were at the time. I just wasn't really organized, working on the channel. And so I missed the window. And now I'm just going to get out of these. I'm just going to sell them off. I'm going to sell them at $3 or $4 a card. I'm not going to try to get a big gain. I'm just going to try to reverse, all of those 29 cents to $1 that I spent on these early on. These Robbers of the Rich. These are just foil Robber of the Rich. This is playset of foils. And then this is an extra foil. I bought these Robber of the Rich right before that tournament where Robber of the Rich had appeared in, I think it was like 6 out of 8 of the top 8 decks, or it was a lot. There were a lot of copies of Robber of the Rich played in that pro tournament. I bought them in response to what I saw people playing, and I got them for very cheap, and at this point, it's not going to be a huge gain that I'm getting on these, but I will have a small gain. Kiora Best the Sea God. These are one of those cards that I really expected to take off in the format, which is silly because it's a giant saga, but there's just so much that you can do with this card. It is very, very, very powerful. Joel and I, we actually expected it to do really well in Ramp. Well, we saw what happened with Ramp. If it wasn't Field of the Dead or Uro, Kiora Best the Sea God just didn't really make it into any decks. It's still a really cool enchantment, but I'm just not using it at all. It's kind of like a failed spec. I bought these very cheaply though early on, and the card really hasn't moved a lot, so this is just going to be me breaking even. This is a playset of Glimpse the Unthinkable. I was just talking about in the beginning of the video that I love to play Mill. Mill is something that is great. These are all the Iconic Masters version. I think it's a great deck, and the new Crab, Ruin Crab, really put Mill on the map in Modern. So since I bought, like a few months ago, actually maybe like half a year ago, I bought a foil playset of the OG Glimpse, and so I no longer need these. And I bought all of these at around just because I was like, now's the time to buy Glimpse. I think I bought all of these at around $5 or $6 a card, and now they're like 10 to 12. So pretty much double the money on these, and we're just gonna go ahead and put that toward different cards in the future. Next, what we have going on is gonna be mostly like EDH playable stuff. This is a foil from Mystery Booster. It's just a card that I'm not using, and I have another copy of it. So if you have superfluous copies of cards that are EDH cards, why are you holding on to that? you can put that money toward a different card. You can trade it for something else. In EDH, what you should be thinking about is just like, if you own one copy of a card, unless you're playing a sanctioned tournament, proxy it for your other decks. It's going to save you money. It's going to save you time so you don't have to flip that card in between decks. It's just like, I don't need 2 Scourge of the Throne foil. I just don't need it. Mind Crank, it's another one of those cards, kind of a niche, uncommon from New Phyrexia. It's got a couple dollars attached to it, and I played so much New Phyrexia that I have multiple copies of this. Pemin's Aura, this is a card that really took off in CEDH. I remember buying these for quarters. I think I have like 10 of them, but a bunch of them got absorbed by friends over the years, and that's fine. I have another copy. This is one that I don't need, and it's really funny. You know, I bought this for a quarter, and now it's like a $10 card just because of CEDH, and that's versatility. Look at everything that this card does. It's very, very, very strong. Expropriate. This is a card that I missed the window on. Pre-Mystery Booster, and even after Mystery Booster was spoiled, you were still able to sell this from anywhere from like $30 to $40. And it just sat. It just sat in a binder. It has sat since I saw it then, months ago. And now I'm just like, you know what? We're just going to sell it for like 15 to 20. I'm just done looking at it. Kozilek, a card that I have multiple copies of, and I'm not going to play this in anything constructed, so I have my 1 copy for EDH. I don't need this. This is a card that is going to be printed in Commander Collection Green, I believe is the name of the product. But if you saw my opening, I bought a very old collection over a year ago, and it had 4 Worldly Tutor in it, among other really, really good cards. I can put that video in the cards if you want to check it out. But I have multiple copies of Worldly Tutor. I just don't need this. Someone else can play this minty fresh Mirage Worldly. Demonic Tutor, $30 card, came out of Ultimate Masters. I have multiple copies of it. There's no telling when they're going to reprint this. It could be in a Secret Lair tomorrow. They could be like, Secret Lair Tutors, Demonic Tutor reprint. And then this goes from $30 down to $20 or down to $15. It's one of the most iconic EDH cards. Pretty much every deck that runs black likes to run a Demonic Tutor. And so for me, I don't need multiple copies. And I've learned a lot since Ultimate Masters with all of the different variants that have come out. I'm like, when's a better time than a Master set for them to print a Demonic Tutor? They're never going to print it in a standard set. Well, now with stuff like the list and set boosters, with Secret Lair, with all of the products where a card can pop up for any reason at all, it doesn't need to be a functional card for the standard set it's coming out of. It's just like, I might as well just sell this. This is an interesting trend that I've noticed in my lifetime as a collector for about 10 years, is when I first started collecting Japanese foils and Japanese variants, and I do still believe that with stuff like way far back, like Onslaught, like foil Japanese Onslaught fetches are going to be a lot more scarce than the English versions. But with modern era, like Japanese and Korean cards, it's just in Chinese, all languages other than what your native language is or what your main language is. It just seems like people are not really interested in them anymore. And oftentimes I'm seeing the Japanese and Korean versions of cards. So these Ashnod Altars, I think this is a World Spine Worm from Ravnica. That might not be what it is. But that's the case in point, is I don't know what this is. It's not iconic enough for me to know what it is. So it's not like a Japanese counterspell. It's not like a Japanese Demonic Tutor. I just have no idea what this card is, and anybody I'm playing with who wants to read it, I'm going to have to look it up on my phone, and there's zero appeal anymore with that shit. Argothian Enchantress, a great card. I know what it does, but again, I don't want the Japanese version. It just, for some reason, the price disparity on these, it's just, they're no longer desirable. Then after that, we have some Secret Lair stuff. And these are, because we did a giveaway, there's going to be 7 of each of these. I did a video opening 7 Thassa Secret Lairs. I was chasing the Stained Glass Narset, and now you can see I have all of these sets. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sell these off as sets of these. I think it will appeal to EDH players. I'll do a small price cut so that people can see, you're going to save some money by buying all 3 of them together. And Save Ithara, which people do like. These 2 cards have very, very good EDH playability, and we all know that Thassa is good in Modern and was making an impact in Pioneer when paper was still a thing. Getting rid of those, and then one more card to talk about. is Tezzeret the Seeker. This is a card that I was buying for around 30 to 35 when War of the Spark came out. Let me see how many I have. Oh, they're there. All right, so just kind of like testing the waters, it's looking like these are going for like 50 now. My reason behind Tezzeret the Seeker and why I targeted that card was because it was one of the cheaper versions that was still very, very popular in EDH. This is played in a lot of artifact builds, but again, with War of the Spark, these are like beautiful, beautiful cards, but we have learned a lot, haven't we, since War of the Spark Mythic Edition. We now see that any card can be reprinted for any reason, at any moment, at any time, on a whim. We have memes that have been printed, so War of the Spark, oh, what a time to be a Magic the Gathering collector. I'm going to be doing some videos on specs because we see some specs in here. We see some stuff that, you know, clearly I bought multiple copies of cards. I'm going to do a video on my failed specs in the future. I'm going to talk about, already, you know, while I was pulling cards to sell, I was going through and I was like, wow, I need to put all of my failed specs together. That way we can make an accountability video about, you know, where I went wrong, what my mindset was buying those cards. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative to you. If you ever have any questions about cards that you're selling, leave it in the comments. I'll do my best to answer to the best of my abilities. Magic the Gathering is an expensive hobby, and we need to do our best to get the most out of our collection. And it means being informed, and it means not really coveting the cards. Use them as a resource to get other cards. There's one thing that you didn't see in this video at all, and that's reserve list cards. I'm not selling those. Until next time, I'm Jake with Jake and Joel Are Magic. I'm tapped out.